Good afternoon, guys. I guess you can call this lesson one. So, might as well get started. When I was younger, there were a lot of times when I wanted to step up my game and get better in life, but I ran into a lot of trouble. I would start a new exercise regimen only for it to last a couple of weeks, a month at the most, or I'd have this idea for a new video on one of my old YouTube channels, one of the dead ones, and about a quarter of the way through writing the script, things kind of just petered out, kind of fizzled out. Or I'd try to implement this new schedule to get more done, more stuff done, only to end up back where I was, back where I started, not long after. There were so many projects and routines that were starting and stopping left and right, which made my self-confidence obviously take a huge hit. Was I just not capable of doing this? Did I not have the discipline? Why wasn't any of this working, I didn't realize what the answer was until about a couple years later when things started falling into place a lot more than they didn't. I was way more consistent in the gym. I found myself actually finishing my projects, and my daily routine was the best it's been in a while. What changed? Not much. Well, kind of, but not really. The only thing that was different was the voice inside my head. Let me explain. Depending on how far down the productivity / mindfulness / self-improvement iceberg you are, you may or may not be aware that your internal dialogue isn't always you. In fact, I'd argue, and most people would agree, that most of the time it isn't you. Even after thousands of years of evolution, we're still primal creatures, us humans, especially within our brains. There are desires, behaviors, and thought patterns hardwired in our heads that usually go against what the logical part wants. The primal part is the amygdala. That's a scientific term. Most of the time, it's telling you to do things that it thinks will keep you safe, things that avoid the use of mental or physical energy, aka things that are easy. Your prefrontal cortex, meanwhile, is the one that's telling you to do the things that you genuinely want to do, but more often than not, the voice of the amygdala drowns it out. You try a new diet, only to find yourself eating junk food a week later. That's the amygdala. You start going to the gym and then quietly stop. Again, this is your amygdala winning its battles with your prefrontal cortex. In order to realize your goals and start getting the hard work done, you're going to have to train that prefrontal cortex. How do you do that? Well, there's this method, sorry if you already know this, people that go to the gym, called progressive overload that people use in the gym when they're lifting heavy weights. It's essentially the amount of work being done, weights being lifted, gradually increasing over time. And in the long term, massive gains are made from that. So, for example, to lift a 150-pound bench press in 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 10 reps, pushes, whatever. Then 155 pounds the next week, 160 after that, and so on. It's not always exactly on this timing. It's not that linear, but before you know it, they're up to something like 225 pounds on their bench press. And progressive overload is what they have to thank for that. I think that training the prefrontal cortex, the logical part of your brain, is pretty similar to progressive overload at the gym. We're going to have to do hard things, but if you haven't really established that track record of having done them before, it might be better for you to start a little smaller, some reps that you can manage, a weight you can manage. The cool thing about your brain that I found is that things you've done before are very much permanent as far as giving you additional energy, discipline. I don't know what the word would be for this. If you stop going to the gym for a while, for example, you might actually lose some of your strength. But for the mind, in my experience, it's very easy to pick up where I left off as far as difficult tasks are concerned, assuming I've done them before. Which is why I refer to the logical part of my brain as having an internal resume. We all know resumes, right? Here's what I did at this job, that job, where I went to school. I can use Microsoft Office. Okay, yada, yada. I'm not going to go into detail on how those work. I'm assuming you've worked before. Point is, I think your brain needs one. I think you need to look at your brain as having one. The same way it's possible to land a nice job without some prior experience, but that being very hard in reality, your brain can technically do some hard exercise regimen or project, but unless you've tackled some stuff like it before, you'll need way more energy and probably a lot more luck to pull it off. I'd much rather tell you to build up that internal resume first. Start a bit smaller and then work your way up. As is the case with anything else, it's not going to be a straight upward trajectory to achieving those smaller goals. There's going to be bumps in the road and unique obstacles for you to overcome, but so long as you keep putting in that work, making an effort, you're going to see that things get easier over time. And that primal caveman part of your brain that you hate so much turns into pretty much a non-issue. Your logical part gets so good at ignoring it, telling it to shut up, It has this portfolio of achievements and accomplishments that can back it up, and it makes shutting up the amygdala a lot easier. Again, internal resume. This is how it worked out for me. I remember I started running in the 8th grade. I was 14 years old, pretty chubby, and at that point especially, I did not want to be. For the life of me, though, I couldn't run for longer than a couple minutes at a time. No joke. I'd run out of breath. I'd be huffing and heaving. I'd be red, whatever. I felt like a failure anytime I tried long runs or sprints, until one day I just decided to change things up. I decided I'd go on the treadmill and start at 2.5 miles per hour walking speed, slowly ramp it up to 3 miles per hour, then 3.5 up until 5 miles per hour, run for 3 minutes, then ramp it back down and get off. And after doing that for a week, the voice in my head said, you know what? I still suck at running, but if I can pull off 3 minutes of running at a time, I bet I can push up to 4 minutes. Let's try that. And I did. And next week, it was 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7. Fast forward to now, and I'm proud to say I've run an unofficial half marathon just on the side of the highway near my house. That's a little over 13 miles of nonstop running, 13.1 miles. And that came from starting of running 2 minutes at a time, 3 minutes at a time. There's been plenty of stumbles and times in my life where I stopped running, sometimes for months at a time, but I almost instantly pick up where I left off when I come back to it. If I ran this much already, I can definitely do it again, right? My internal resume is shining through. Running is no longer something I dread, I just do it. I know what to expect as far as obstacles, and any new ones I conquer, I remember for next time. And one thing you need to remember is that, like on a normal resume, there are transferable skills on your internal resume. After all that experience with running, for example, I moved on to a different area of focus in my life, my career. I really wanted some record-paced career progression because I felt like I was behind, and despite not having a lot of experience with it directly, I still made things happen. I got a promotion at my workplace, my corporate job, in just 10 months, despite the company requiring a year's worth of tenure before you're even qualified to ask for it, before you can even apply. Just had to do some stuff, shake some hands in the back. I made it happen. I had already acquired self-discipline, experience with early mornings, and was great at monitoring my progress. I did all that when I ran, so it worked well when I applied those same skills at work. And of course, I picked up some new skills of this endeavor, and I've added them to my tool belt. Now I can use them. They're part of my internal resume. This is how you need to frame having your long-term goals. Having a grand vision is good, but when you actually start, it makes more sense to keep things smaller. Build up the internal resume first. If you've made great things happen in other areas of life before, then by all means, go for that running start. But if you haven't developed what you need to develop to succeed, you're going to find yourself failing a lot. So with all that in mind, I thought it'd be great to share 3 activities that I think really help to build up that internal resume. Specifically if you're someone just starting out, that kind of, no experience, entry-level kind of guy for the internal resume. This is weird. The first activity is going to the gym. Yeah. The gym is that one-size-fits-all recommendation that I don't ever think is wrong. It's like majoring in self-discipline in life, college. I'm going to try and tone it down with these weird metaphors. Whatever you decide to focus on, whether that be cardio or losing weight, lifting, building muscle, or a mix of both, that's totally up to you. I have my own personal opinions on which one is right for which person, but that's a topic for a separate video where my body looks like somebody who knows what he's talking about. The point is to just get into that habit of showing up to put your body through some form of physical exertion. As anyone can tell you, it sucks when you start. That caveman voice in your head, that amygdala, it's going to try everything in its power to keep you from doing that run or actually showing up on leg day. But when you do it, that's points on the board, and you develop yourself more as a person, and you build up that internal resume. Take a look around YouTube, for example. Try and find one productivity or self-help channel that hasn't mentioned fitness or isn't themselves in good shape. You're going to have a hard time finding anyone that doesn't fit those criteria. It's because exercise is such a game changer. It's such a foundational component of anyone's success. It's near universal. And if anything, it's something that I think should always be a part of your routine once you get it in there. It makes you feel happier. You're obviously getting healthier along the way. I could go on. You know it's good for you. I know it's good for you. Everyone knows it's good for you. So there's no reason not to do it. So if you're not doing something that makes you sweat or grunt a little bit, start now. And again, start with something small. Anything, really. A walk, for example. And build your way up. You'd be surprised how much progress you can make in a couple of months, let alone a year. And of course, the impact on your internal resume is going to be huge. The second activity that I think will help develop your internal resume, or activities I should say, are any activities related to mindfulness. Now, the fact of the matter is there are a ton of ways for you to get distracted between wanting to change for the better and having actually accomplished that change. So, social media and doom scrolling is probably the biggest one I can think of, but technically anything that isn't remotely aligned with your goals is a distraction. Practicing mindfulness is what's going to help you stay on track with your goals. The best and most effective mindfulness activity is, you already know what I'm going to say, it's meditation. Yep. Meditation is the best mindfulness activity. It's a boring recommendation, but I would certainly hope you're not watching me solely for entertainment purposes. If you want to get better, this is how you do it. Some habits are just near universal in their applicability and their ability to just change your life, There's no reason why you shouldn't be doing this. Same with exercise. Another is journaling, another mindfulness activity. Very basic, just put pen to paper and see where your minds take you when you get introspective. You could type it out, but I think the rate at which thoughts flow is much better suited to the rate at which you can, physically write. It's a lot easier for me to not start and stop as much compared to when I try things on a computer. I think that counts for something. And if we're being completely arbitrary, I just think there's something really cool about coming back to read your old handwritten notes later on in life. That's just me. If you think you're better off opening a blank Word document and typing on there, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. Just get into the habit, Point is, just practice your mindfulness, right? Make it a habit, and soon you're going to develop an ability to be able to recognize that caveman voice, the amygdala, in the moment when it's trying to throw you off. Having that ability is especially powerful, and that's why you need to incorporate mindfulness activities into your life and make them stick. Make them a habit. I know that it can be boring, meditation and journaling, but it's that silent boost that gets you over the finish line. And in terms of the internal resume, think of this as a certification that you need to actively work to keep. This is getting really cheesy now. Lastly, I really think you should just shut up and do the thing. Yeah, that's it. I can tell you from my own experience that staring down a new, somewhat difficult task can be very intimidating. And in that moment, you're tempted to walk away. You are. Maybe the next time you come back to it, you'll be a little more motivated, but nope, same thing. The task is so daunting. This needs to stop. What you need to do is just dive in head first and get your hands dirty. You might laugh when you hear me say this, but I think Will Smith explained this concept best in his own autobiography. Just hear me out, okay? Essentially, there's this part in the book where he and his brother were kids and their dad was having them build a wall, this seemingly massive brick wall. Both Will and his brother thought pulling this off was impossible. They couldn't comprehend ever finishing. And at one point, Will's dad hears them complaining and says this: "Stop thinking about the damn wall. There is no wall. There are only bricks. Your job is to lay this brick perfectly. Then move on to the next brick. Then lay that brick perfectly. Then the next one. Don't be worrying about no wall. Your only concern is one brick." Damn. Long story short, over a lengthy period of time, they finished the wall, and they only do so after deeply internalizing what their dad told them. Every important task in your life, no matter how challenging, can be broken down into smaller pieces. If it's hard to get to work because you keep thinking of all the stuff that needs to be done. Just focus on the next step. Lay that next brick, forget about the wall. Writing that lengthy report from scratch seems impossible, but just start at square one and work your way up. Pick your fonts. Get the cover sheet out of the way. Write that first sentence and then stumble through the first couple paragraphs. We'll rewrite them later. Who cares? A few hours later and wow, you've got a couple pages done. You're in the zone too. Now this is starting to feel like something you can work your way through. Find a way to frame every challenge this way. And when you complete those challenges, your brain's going to remember them. And by doing so, you're adding these projects to your internal resume so that the next time you find yourself with a big assignment or a lofty goal, you already know the blueprint that produces results. By going and implementing these key behaviors, you're no doubt going to develop a hell of an internal resume. And much in the same way that success in past jobs usually translates to bigger and better things later on, you can get to some pretty high highs personally if you just get that experience. So put in the work, head to the gym, practice some mindfulness, and just do the damn thing. Don't worry about the wall, just lay the brick. And with that, I'll see you on the other side.